One. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps, and we got a very exciting Lightforge ahead. Lots to talk about this week. Let's just jump right into it. We've talked about KFT, not KFC, KFT last week, but this week we're really going to dig in because we have cards now.
Real cards. Real actual cards, not just, the first like five. But before we get in there, there's actually still Arena going on right now. Not everybody is just looking at Reddit and clicking refresh repeatedly, being bad, being a horrible employee at work, and looking for the card reveals. There are actually people still playing the Arena. So we're going to spend like the first 5 minutes basically telling you to go play the Arena right now. You want gold. This is easy. This is by far the easiest meta that we have been in, I think, since like Classic.
Yep. And man, this is probably the best Arena event they've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we don't have much to compare it to because they really don't do Arena events. But with the free Arena tickets, with the free win, this is a great time to go infinite and farm gold and get packs, right?
Yes.
I have been playing a lot. I think on my main account now, I have EU, I have about 17 packs. On my main account, I think I have 40 packs. And before the event started, I had around 2,500 gold. Now I have almost 6,000. So,
wow. That's a big gain.
And it is a very big gain.
That's what happens when they give you one free win and the meta gets easier, right? Mm-hmm. So go out, play the Arena. Don't be shy. Don't feel like anxiety about playing it. If you're looking to improve, now's a good time to improve while feeling good. If you are really good, now's the time to rack in like all the 12 wins. I don't know what you're averaging in this meta. I know as a stream we got our last 10 runs, 7 have gone 12, and we played like almost all the classes.
Right. And I'm going for the leaderboard. So during my leaderboard right now, my average is around like 9.4, and it'll end somewhere around there.
Yeah, like, you're getting close to it, to the 30 run cap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's 9.4. That's obviously, Merps is not getting 9.4 wins per run outside of KFT, but this is what KFT can do for you. I have also gotten a fake, 412 wins in a row with the freaking. I'm still like triggered by this right now. I'm like still tilting and still salty about it. The fifth 12 win run that should have happened was 11-0 Hunter, and then for 3 runs in a row, we magically did not curve out where our opponent Paladins curved out.
Right.
So it was only 4 12 wins and 1 11 win leading into today's coup. But that's the level, right? Like, I know people want to know, like, how much easier did it get? We can't really tell you how much easier it got, but let's just say I'm not normally going 4 12 wins in a row. I don't think I've ever gotten 4 12 wins in a row on stream. And then following it up with an 11. And Merps does not usually average 9.5 wins per run. That is, like, significantly overperforming. That's how easy the Frost Festival is.
It's good. But yeah, so guys, the Frost Festival should be here for, this next week at least, right? Mm-hmm. We don't exactly know when it ends, but it should be here for at least the next week. So play the Arena. This is a great way to prep for the new expansion. Not only to get some practice in, get your practice your fundamentals, sort of get better, really get the grind started again if you haven't been playing Arena. And also it's just a great time to farm, right? Mm-hmm. Get those packs, get that gold, so you can continue to dominate when the expansion comes out, because we should have quite a few people
You want to be warm. You want to be warmed up. You don't want the expansion to be hit and be like, crap, how do I click on cards? What do I do? There's this thing that's burning. What is that? It looks kind of like a rope. You don't want that to happen. What you want to do is hit the ground running. So go out, play the Arena. It's really good. It's really good right now. I would say that, besides the +1 free wins, the fact that the meta is easier probably gets you another win. So I would say this is like a 1.5 to 2 free win meta that's happening right now.
Oh, also, this is kind of look, if you're going for the leaderboard, you should probably already know this, but if you're going for the leaderboard next month, do as many runs as you can in the first week.
In the very first week before the Frost Festival is over and before the new expansion comes out.
Right. Or if you want to do leaderboards next month and you can't play a lot in the first week, just don't go for the leaderboard at all.
Yeah.
That's like honestly pro tip.
Yeah.
Because other people will be spamming Arena in the first week and they will have a win on top of whatever you have. Right. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you're better than the other person.
You gotta be like one win better than the other person.
Yes. So yeah, either go really hard during the first week or don't try at all. And
have fun and learn. Like when KFT comes out, just have fun with it. Play around, play new classes, figure out all the cards. And if you're going for the leaderboard, be like me. Go for the leaderboard in September. That's when I have it penciled in to go for the leaderboard. Yep. Okay, so that's our Frost Festival little intro. Before we get on to what everyone really cares about, which is the KFT card reveal. If you are watching this on YouTube or live, we're gonna put the cards in right on the screen. If you're listening to this, we will read out each card as we discuss them. Now, we're not going to talk about every card that's revealed because although Blizzard did start this whole reveal season with like this blisteringly amazing pace of one card on the first day, just one card after 2 weeks of silence, and it was the Tickling Abomination, 4 mana, 5/6, Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to all your minions, just your minions, not your opponent's minions. Also, just your minions. They've picked up the pace since then, and they've revealed like I want to say like one card every 2 hours on average since Monday, and so we don't have enough time here to actually cover all of them. So we're going to take the important ones to the meta and cover those.
Yep, sounds good. So what is your first topic or theme?
Okay, so you guys know I like to do themes when it comes to the arena, and I think that's what makes sense when you're doing an arena reveal, is to talk about how the arena meta is actually going to change, rather than like here are the first like 2 or 3 like great cards, especially when it's in the middle of the reveal season. We don't really know what the best cards are, although we have kind of a pretty good idea. So the first theme that I am going to I want to say like put on the table, because only like a quarter of the cards have been revealed so far, not even. There's still plenty of room for everything to like go off the rails and not be in this theme, but so far there's already plenty of cards that create a theme, and these are the neutral cards that have been revealed. Okay, I am going to talk about the 3 neutral common cards that have been revealed, and the 3 neutral common cards that have been revealed are all 5 damage. 5 attack. Okay, there's 4 neutral cards that have been revealed, but one is a wisp. It's a tiny fin replacement. We don't care about that one. It's a tiny fin, but it's a beast, so it's actually probably more useful than a tiny fin. But still, putting that aside with like minimal arena relevance, the first card that we're going to talk about is Cobalt Scalebane. 5 mana, 5/5 dragon. At the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion +3 attack.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is first of all going to your theme of like, oh, everything has 5 attacks so far, right? But man, this is just a solid card. 5 mana 5/5s have always been, although understated, they've always fit into the meta, right? There is a definite jump from 4 to 5 in terms of HP, and 5 has traditionally been a point in which stuff gets a little bit weird, right? It's not just like about stats. And also you see a lot of like 4/6s at that point. So 5/5s have always just been pretty decent. And this is just Master Swordsmith ×3, right?
This is what happens when Master Swordsmith becomes a dragon.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So you get like a pretty normally statted body, and then you get free +3 attack. You know what this card reminds me of? It's not as good, but it kind of reminds me of Cabal Talon Priest. Right? It's like basically a correctly statted minion, and then you get 3 extra stats. This one repeats. Cabal Talon Priest is obviously better on curve with that 1 extra stat.
Right. You get the initiative. You're right. We don't want people thinking that it's like, oh, it's just as good as Cabal Talon Priest. Like, no. Like, because you get the initiative with the Cabal Talon Priest, right?
Yeah,
So
but
that
like
is
here's the situation that's going to happen where you don't necessarily need the initiative, right? Like you play a 4-drop or something, your opponent plays a 5-drop, you play a Cobalt Scalebane, and your 4-drop, which could be a 3/5, which could be a 4/4, whatever, all of a sudden becomes a 7/4
right.
or a 6/5. And you know what your opponent's going to do with his 5/5 on turn 5? He's going to kill that minion. He's not going to kill your 5/5. Or he's going to kill your 5/5 because it's going to trigger again the next turn potentially if he can't get rid of it some other way. So either way, he's left with a pretty awful choice.
Right. So, like, we see this first card, the Cobalt Scalebane. What does it reward? It rewards being on the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, going with your theme of being on the board.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually say the theme because I was going to reveal it at the very end. But now that you've let the
Oh,
cat out of the bag by not listening to me, the main theme is
you
not
did have
just
it
5
written on
attacks.
the. So, if people had reading comprehension,
Fine.
they would be able to figure it out.
Fine. Reading comprehension is sadly not applicable to podcasts when people are listening. So the theme we're going with here is on the board, right? Anything that's on the board, if you are on the board, you're going to be more powerful. If you can clear your opponent's board somehow and be on the board for just one turn, you're going to do fine. And we'll talk more about what this theme means later, but I really want to highlight these 3 cards first. Okay. So, Cobalt Scalebane was the first card, and we started with that because it is like the least powerful of the 3 cards. It's a ridiculously powerful card, as you guys, as you guys can see. It's if you have anything on the board at all, it's immediately 13 stats for 5 mana, and you get an ability that if you don't kill, it stays on the board, right? So you effectively can upgrade your 4-drop into a 5-drop or better. More importantly, the Cobalt Scalebane is a common. It's a common neutral minion. It will, as are the other 2 cards we're going to talk about. So they will be everywhere. They will be in every single class. They will have the bonus. You will see these everywhere. Okay, with that set up, next, do you want to talk about the Necrotic Geist?
Geist. I'm guessing it's Necrotic Geist. Anyways, Necrotic Geist, it's a 6-mana minion with 5 attack and 3 health, with the text of whenever one of your other minions dies, summon a 2/2 ghoul, right? So we've seen cards that are similar, but like in a Cult Master, right? But they turn your tempo into cards. This turns your tempo into more tempo. Right? And we've had sort of mechanics like this as well, where it rewards you for being on the board extra. Like we've had cards like the Soul of the Forest, right, which is kind of similar to in this regard because it also creates 2/2s. This can just be an infinite engine though, because if you have control of the board and they don't have AOE, you bump all of your stuff in, you have 2/2s, and then if they just play vanilla stuff, you keep on bumping your 2/2s in to get more 2/2s. So this is one of the infinite engines that we thought we got rid of when Inspire sort of left the game, right? But this is definitely a way in which
Cobalt Scalebane's also an infinite engine if you just leave it on the board.
True.
They're back.
Yeah, that's fair. And you don't even have to hero power anymore. It's like Inspire. It's like you don't have to hero power, please.
It just automatically happens, and it's not like limited by like you used to have these things that's like when you attack a minion, if this survives, something happens, and you're kind of capped at how good this card can be. But these are uncapped. These snowball. You get this on the board, you can win the game. All of these are actual game-winning cards, right? And you don't usually see a lot of neutral game-winning cards in Hearthstone. Like, Snail is not a game-winning card, right? Like, Drake is a game-winning card. Neutral common game-winning cards are very rare. They can be, like, really good, but your Cult Masters are, like, very far and, are very far and... What's the expression?
What? I don't know what you're trying to get at, so I don't know how it can help you.
are very rare. I'll go with that. There's an expression. I swear there's an expression that starts with far, but I can't think of the rest of it.
Few and far between?
Few and far between, that's the expression.
So it doesn't start with far.
It does not start with far.
Okay, great.
The Necrotic Geist, how many do you think it has to trigger before you get the value?
What, Necrotic Geist?
Yeah, Necrotic Geist. How many 2/2s do you want before you're like, all right, I think this is a good time to play this card? Assuming that you will have the board.
And I mean, I think even just getting 2 ghouls is pretty good. Because if you're trading anyways, and for 6 mana you can get a 5/3 and a 2/2 and another 2/2, that's good. That's more than I should expect for 6 mana.
Well, for 6 mana, if you get 2/2/2s, that's already a 4/4, and you're stacking a 5/3 on top of a 4/4. That would be a 9/7 for 6 mana. So yeah, right. That would definitely be good. What I was trying to get at is that if you get 1 ghoul, if you get even 1 ghoul out of a Necrotic Geist,
it's okay. Yeah.
Then it's totally fine, because you would have essentially 5/7s worth of stats with a minion that needs to be removed off the board immediately, right? So unless your opponent has something on the board already that can remove the Necrotic Geist, just getting 1 minion out of this is a totally okay play. Getting 2 minions is overkill already, with the potential upside of winning the game, snowballing to win the game right after that. Because your 2/2s trade in for more 2/2s the next turn if it's not removed, right?
Yep.
So this is why this card is insanely powerful. Like, I know a lot of people look at it and think like, it's a kind of a good card. No, this is like a game-winning card, the likes of which neutral commons do not usually see. Because when it comes to actually having like a downside, right? Like a Cult Master downside, this downside tempo-wise almost doesn't exist. You have to never be on the board in a way in which your minion can die in a useful way for this to not get its normal 6 mana's worth of tempo value. So unlike other cards in which if you're behind, you need to find a way to get back and they don't give you tempo and you can't do anything, even when you're behind, this card could pretty easily give you tempo.
Yeah, it's a pretty scary card, definitely. And as we will see, this is this card should trigger quite often, right? Just based on the other themes of the expansion. But anyways, so we have seen sort of 2 heavy-ish neutral cards that, man, they will really impact and define the meta, right? And ADWCTA is correct. You usually don't see these kind of cards. You see, like, you can see powerful cards like Nesting Rock and Bog Creeper, right?
Right.
That sort of still, quote, define the meta, and you play around them and you expect them, but they are powerful in a very consolidated, singular way, right? They do not...
They are a good minion for their value that is big and high tempo.
Right.
That's like the definition, right? You have your Bog Creeper that does that, you have your Nesting Row that does that, your Snails, your Wasp, like, the good cards usually do that. Or they have like one single trigger ability that'll kill something situationally, right? Like weapon removal is probably the easiest one to think of.
Yep.
Or I don't know, Mad Bomber does the same thing, right? They can like remove something on the curve. It does one thing, and then it is a body. That's like as much as neutral commons go, except for Cult Master. And now we have Necrotic Geist, and we have Cobalt Scalebane. So okay, that's 2 very powerful cards now. 1 5 mana, 1 6 mana. Let's move on to the 7 mana powerhouse. One more. We're saving the best for last. We're going in order, going to end with the best card here of the neutral commons, and it is Bone Mare. Bone Mare is a 5/5, just like Cobalt Scalebane, and for the 2 extra mana, you get to put a Blessing of Kings on someone and give it taunt.
So, Bone Mare, 7 mana, 5/5, battle cry, give a friendly minion +4/+4 and taunt. Wow. This is it's pretty good.
This is I don't think anybody disagrees that this is going to be a totally game-changing meta-defining card. Like sometimes you have one card that is just so good that it defines the entire meta. Like think of if like Primordial Drake, which already kind of defined the meta when it comes to just totally stopping aggro. Imagine if that was a common. Like this is what we have here with Bone Mare. This is Primordial Drake levels of overpoweredness. This is like Vile Spine Slayer, like, you know, level. They're all on the same level. What this card basically does is, it potentially blocks, it potentially taunts a really big minion, or if it's not really big, it'll make it really big, and it stops aggro if they can't hard remove it, right? Like, it removes an opponent win condition potentially. And then, not even counting that, it also just provides 2 extra tempo. Like, if each tempo is 1 mana's worth of stuff, this gives you 2 extra 1, with the only condition being even weaker than the Necrotic Gaze condition. The Necrotic Gaze condition to be a normal card is to be able to kill off one of your guys. To actually get your value out of Necrotic Gaze, it actually has to either survive a turn, or you had to have 2 cards that you could kill on their board, right? That's not terribly hard to happen, but it is something that, you know, is not like going to happen every game. You're always going to trigger Bone Mare. Always.
Basically. Yeah. Because with this one, you can even wait for like turn 9, right?
Totally fine.
Yeah, if you're a paladin and on turn 9 you play, or you don't even play anything, you just hero power on this, and you have a 5/5 taunt plus a 5/5. That's fine. You're okay. Like for 9 mana, you're okay with a 5/5 taunt and a vanilla 5/5.
And that's worst case scenario.
That's like the worst case scenario for you.
Best case scenario is you have a random minion on the board, you use it, you kill your opponent's 5 or 6 drop, and still have a taunt minion on the board, and then you have a 5/5 also.
Right. So look, you can do a lot of comparisons to other cards. You can say, wow, this is like a Blessing of Kings with taunt and a severely cheapened, 5/5. You can look at it that way. You can look at it as a it's like a weird variant of a Firelands Portal, right? In which, for 7 mana, you get a 5/5 body, which is very, like, you're hoping for a 5/5 body or above from Firelands Portal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get +4/+4 and taunt, which is sometimes better or sometimes worse than just 5 damage, out of your hand.
Yep.
But yeah, the cards that we're comparing this card to are top premium cards in the arena. And this is
not
what it
commons.
Is.
Top, so top that they cannot be commons. They're class cards or they're Primordial Drake.
Class cards.
Yeah.
Top class cards, which, as we know, class cards are allowed to be powerful. Because they define the class, and this is like, and for Blizzard, class cards, they can say, this is the Paladin's territory. This is the Mage's territory, and they should dominate in this regard.
So whose territory is Bone Mare?
Well, everyone has an alternative hero, so it's like, alternative heroes, just have your Bone Mares, right?
So this is Bone Mare. It's super powerful, super easily triggered. Remember when you said there wasn't gonna be power creep? And I was like, yeah, you're right. There's probably not gonna be power creep in this expansion.
Well, it's weird. Like, all right, so in terms of power creep, there's definitely power creep, but it is still true in the regard that, like, we don't see stuff, like, all of these still need something else to work, right? It is still not like Primordial Drake or Nesting Rock in that you can just drop stuff, or like Bog Creeper, like they are just by themselves. Even Nesting Rock, like, are you happy getting a 4/7 for 5? Really happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, really happy. That is just a great statted drop. But with these cards, you still need other stuff. So there is power creep, but it's power creep in a different way. It's like snowball power creep, which I would say is probably worse for it.
Okay, I'm going to totally disagree with you on saying it's worse. I think there's nothing worse than Primordial Drake, and there is nothing worse than Primordial Drake because it is completely off the board. I actually think these cards, I mean, they're meta defining, right? You're going to be in a totally new meta, and they're bad. Why? Because they're way more powerful than normal cards, and then whoever gets more of these cards is going to win, right? Bad. But as far as making a power creep and making cards that are super powerful goes, this is not that bad. Because what you want to do is when creating these cards, you want to favor the player who is better if you're going to create these cards. And these are a little bit win more. They're at least, they like you said, right? They require something else on the board to actually get even like normal value, right? Like if you have nothing on the board, these are below normal cards. But if you have something on the board, they are quickly like insane cards. So who's going to have more minions on the board usually? It's going to be the better player. There's a way that skill goes in Hearthstone Arena, which is kind of weird, which is that if you don't have the board, the good player versus the bad player will win a much higher percentage of the games than if you both have the board. But the good player will have the board so much higher of a percentage of time that if you want to create an environment that is better for good players, you want to create an environment where things actually snowball a little harder. Like, it's not really a paradox because that's exactly how it works. Like, if you have a 70% chance of being on the board and being good increases that 10%, versus if you have 30% chance of not being on the board and not being on the board, your skill increases your win rate by 25%, it's still not going to match the smaller, like, relative increase of being on the board, just because you're on the board so much more often. So these are actually favorable for good players compared to a card like Primordial Trick. Like, if you're going to go in a way in which these cards are going to be super, super powerful, you want it to favor the player on the board.
Sure. And this is always something in which we've talked about it before, in that a lot of people complain about Curvestone, right? That was sort of the meme, that was sort of the joke. People complain about Curvestone. It's like Curvestone has skill to it. It's like, it's not just like playing stuff and establishing your board and keeping your board. It's not like you're just vomiting stuff out and that's the no skill aspect of it. Like, you should reward people for being on the board, right?
And even more than that, these are not like, okay, Bone Mare aside. Bone Mare aside, these other two cards at least don't reward you that much for having even just one card on the board. This is not Curvestone. These are not like exactly Curvestone cards, right? Curvestone was problematic because whoever missed a spot on the curve would just lose. This is not helping or hurting that. This is not making you lose more if you miss one step on the curve. These cards are actually designed, Bone Mare aside, with the idea that you have to actually take the board. You have to be able to protect your board to be able to get the most value out of these. Bone Mare is weird. It is like a little too good. That is kind of your more typical like Curvestone kind of card, right? But
right.
Even for that, that's 7 mana. Like, that's a very like late game Curvestone card. By then, you are able to do so many different things to get back the curve, even if you missed a drop, right? Like, you'll True Silver, you'll get some good matchups, you play an AoE, like whatever, right? Like, there's plenty of ways to get back by that point to kind of recover from Curvestone. This is not GVG where you had no options.
Yep, I think that's fair. So, look, these are the neutral cards. All right, along with the 0 mana 1/1 beast known as Snowflipper Penguin. Okay.
We're hating on this penguin so much. It's going to be like totally a crowd favorite, and we're going to be the guys who hate on it.
I'm going to pick in the arena sometimes. Like, I pick Wisp, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's the best card, especially if you have a Bone Mare. Then it's 7 mana 5/5/5/5.
Right. And also this is synergy with like Zubats and Menagerie Magicians.
Yeah, it's a
right?
beast. And if you're in Hunter or Druid, it's a beast.
It's not bad. I activate my kill command for free.
Mm-hmm.
So look, these are the cards that have come out. Jokes aside with the Penguin, we see cards that predominantly reward you for being on the board, and these are heavy, sort of fancy cards. Do you have another term for it?
No. I mean, they're cards that help you when you already have the board, even if it's just for one turn, right? Like, that's why I really don't think this is going to Curvestone. Like, I think the easy read on what the meta is going to be is, oh, look, you're going to have cards that require you to be on the board, so Curvestone. But there's no curve here, right? Like, in this entire review, there are no neutral cards that are actually part of the curve. Not a single one so far. Well, okay, fine. If you think Tickling Abomination is decent as a curve on 4, 1, you don't know how curve works, and 2, that is one card, right? Nothing else revealed so far that's neutral.
Wait. What did you call that card?
Tickling Abomination?
Did you say tickling?
Oh, it's not tickling, it's ticking. Oh, that makes so much more sense. I thought it tickled all your minions with 5 damage, and I was like, man, that's underselling his ability or his downside. Oh, it's ticking because he's a bomb, and he's gonna explode and destroy all your board at any time. I get it now.
Okay.
Let's move on. Let's move on from the ticking abomination. Um,
Let's.
okay, so again, no curve cards. This is not, at least as of what we know right now, this is actually very much not headed in Curvestone's direction, right? Your curve may be worse than it was in Ungoro. Okay. The next theme that I want to cover is stalling the game, right? This is something that we kind of knew was coming from KFT from the very beginning, but now it's starting to like really take shape. And one of the ways you stall the game that they provided us in the very beginning when they revealed cards was lifesteal, right? What does lifesteal do? It gives you life, and you may think, oh, that's just a control card, kind of, but not really. Because when you are stealing life, all you're doing is prolonging your own misery, right? Like if your opponent has a bunch of stuff on the board and you gain health, you're gonna lose that health at an equal, if not faster pace. Like, it stops the bleeding a little bit. It's definitely not an aggro card. It's definitely like more of a control card than an aggro card, but it does not help you flip the board at all.
Right.
Like, it does not Primordial Drake anything. It is not something that will help you win the game unless you're waiting to top deck your like lethal, right? In which case you had to have been aggressive to begin with. So it doesn't solve the problem of, oh, my opponent is a good player and has the board and I don't. So what I call these in terms of control, because they are control cards, is stall. It's part of the stalling game. These are only useful to either, once you control the board, get you out of lethal, or to stall the game until you can find lethal yourself. In either case, you still need to either be on the board or have been on the board pounding your opponent's face for a while before these cards actually do anything. So, yes, these are control cards, but they're not the kinds of control cards that Blizzard had been printing for 2 expansions, right? Like, MSG was about those potions that exploded and destroyed everything. Ungoro was about, like, a ton of large taunts and like double-sided board clear and Primordial Drake and meteors and volcanoes. Like, this is not what KFT is about. All right, KFT is about stalling the game. So you have Lifesteal, which an example is Spirit Lash, 2 mana Lifesteal, deal 1 damage to all minions. Priest card, not very good. Choblade Champion, Paladin card, 4 mana, 3/2, charge, lifesteal. Again, not very good. And these are the cards that are getting printed for lifesteal. So fine. But now we're also seeing cards that are about freeze. And freeze, obviously, is potentially used in a control way, right? You have freeze mage, and freeze literally prevents that minion from attacking your face. And you can then combo the freezes or like put a minion out that's bigger that can eat it or whatever. All sorts of things, right? It's a very flexible thing. But what it also doesn't do by itself is it doesn't flip the board. So one of the examples of a freezing minion is Ice Walker. 2 mana, 1/3, mage, elemental. Your hero power also freezes the target, right? Just a basic freeze. And more interesting than that, shamans are getting in on the freeze game. Because shamans have traditionally always had one card that froze things. It was Frost Shock, and no more. Nothing else ever froze anything. It was kind of weird, actually, that Frost Shock existed. But now they're getting a whole slew of cards. You want to talk about Voodoo Hexer?
Sure. Voodoo Hexer, interesting card. It is a Shaman minion, rare card, 5 mana, 2/7 taunt. We've seen the stat line before, right, in Alley Armorsmith. But it also has the effect of freeze any character damaged by this minion. So even face, right? If this connects to their face, whether they're attacking into it or this attacks, the hero, it freezes everything. So this is just a very annoying card, right? Like really annoying when you combine freeze, like a freeze minion with taunt
and a really high health too.
Yeah,
because like what's the weakness of this stat line? It's too low of attack. It'll not kill anything. They'll just kill this taunt. You'll like basically heal for a little health effectively, and then they'll hit you again, right? So it just stalls. But this actually stalls twice. If your opponent if his minions actually survive hitting into this taunt, they're all frozen. So they don't attack for one more turn after that because they froze it on their turn to attack your minion. So it's double stall. It's even better than like a Blizzard. It's even better than like a gigantic taunt.
Right, if they all connect, right? Now, the sort of downside of this is just, unlike Blizzard, it doesn't have the initiative. It doesn't hit automatically.
Right.
It just kind of sits there and
can be removed.
Your opponent can do stuff with it. But yeah, this is a card that definitely not only fits the theme of the expansion, but it also helps Shamans sort of set up, right?
Yeah, set up the whole freeze thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one more freeze card.
For the Shaman.
For the Shaman.
All right, look, it's a thing. It's a weapon.
No. The card that actually freezes things.
Oh, you're talking about cryostasis.
I'm talking about cryostasis. Okay. The other. So Shaman has had 4 cards being revealed so far. 2 of them uses freeze. 2 of them freezes. Right. Voodoo Hexer freezes. Cryostasis freezes.
Cryostasis. This is a really interesting card because I think this was on sort of custom HS subreddit, or where they make cards, and this was one of the ones that was very popular over there. But anyways, it is a spell, epic 2-mana spell. Give a minion +3/+3 and freeze it.
Yeah,
really interesting.
So keep in mind when you freeze it, if you just put the minion on the board and freeze it, it does not attack the next turn. It doesn't just unfreeze the next turn because it's your turn where you froze it.
Right. So this is a card in which I'm just like, wow, it doesn't matter how good it is, and it's not going to be amazing.
Really? I would say freezing your own minions not the best thing.
It would not be great, but great design. I love it, right? Because a card like this, what it forces you to do is weigh the negative side effect with the positive, right? Because getting 3/3/3 for 2 mana is really, really good. Freezing something is not so good unless you're freezing the opponent's thing, and then there's a lot of, because you can put it on your minions or the opponent's minions, right? Mm-hmm. And you have choices to make for both of them, and risk analysis to do whenever you do this, which we love risk analysis. That's the entire game for us.
Okay, hold on. I'm reading Twitch chat right now, and they're saying if you can attack with a minion but don't and freeze it with this, it will unfreeze at the end of the turn. Is that true?
I don't know. I can't.
That's how freeze works? Because I thought it was turn-based. Like, if you freeze a minion on your turn, it doesn't unfreeze your next turn. But if this is saying, if you play a minion on this turn and then freeze it, yeah, it'll still be frozen the next turn.
Okay. Maybe that is how the mechanic works, because we haven't had something similar to this, right?
Okay, so all freeze means is it misses its next attack. So if its next attack is this turn and you freeze it this turn, it just unfreezes right afterwards. That makes it significantly better, because now you can control which turn you miss your attack, right? Like, I know how my opponent's set up. I don't need my attack this turn. I'll just give it +3/+3. Yeah. And of course, another use for this card is to put it on your taunt totem. That's going to be a popular one. Or any kind of taunt minion, right? Because more stats on taunt is better than stats on non-taunts. And the fact that it's frozen doesn't do all that much, because your opponent still has to get through it.
Yeah. So, interesting card once again. Shaman is going really heavy on the freezes.
Mm-hmm. Going back to your weapon?
Icebreaker, 3 mana. All right, so I think they realized that with Shaman, it's maybe we shouldn't give him an OP weapon,
Another one?
Yeah, another one, especially after, the pre-nerf Spirit Claws. Oh my gosh. God. And then Jade Claws and everything. Anyways, Icebreaker, 3 mana weapon. It's got 1 attack and 3 durability. And it says, destroy any frozen minion damaged by this. And what do you know? We have some freezes available for Shaman. So you're not only reliant on Frost Shock anymore.
Yep, and even their legendary, Murabi, is whenever another minion is frozen, add a copy of it to your hand. So it's a 6 mana 4/4, but it potentially generates you a lot of cards if you can freeze a bunch of stuff.
Right. Look, it's not a great card.
No, I mean, these are not arena, the ones that use freeze are not arena friendly cards, right? Because they're heavy synergy cards. You're not going to get that many freezes in the arena. as Shaman, because even if all the rest of the cards are all freeze related, it will still not be something that happens like every other turn.
Yep.
So these are not cards you want to pick in the arena, but they are going for a theme, and so this theme means Shaman will remain control, right? What's going to happen is what's already happened in Ungoro is Shaman had Volcano, and then it had ways to set up with Elemental that triggers Elementals the next turn, right? So that for one turn you can be off the board, kill everything, and then you pop back on. So freezing really works with that, right? Like, how do you guarantee a better Volcano? Well, you freeze something your opponent has. What's going to happen afterwards? He's going to have to play more stuff, right? And then you Volcano everything. Like, you can cryostasis something if you don't want cryostasis something. You don't want something to attack. Like, it's there's ways you can do interesting things to set up for Volcanoes with freezes. And going back to Mage, not only is Mage naturally like a freeze class that has plenty of freeze cards already and will probably get more, and has already gotten more with the Ice Walker. They have Code Wraith, 3 mana, 3/4, a nice on-curve minion that also has a battle cry that says if the enemy is frozen, draw a card. So that's a pretty powerful thing if you can freeze your opponent, which you're going to have more ways to do. And even on top of that, there's like more like stalling kind of cards going on for the Mage. Ghastly Conjurer, 4 mana, 2/6, battle cry, add a mirror image to your hand. Right, 4 mana, 2/6, not a great stat line, but then you get a free mirror image, which just stalls. Like, it's mirror image is the O2 taunts, right? The 1 mana summon 2 O2 taunts. All that does is stall. So there's a lot of defensive stall cards coming in for Mage and Shaman that don't really help you flip the board by themselves. You need to combo it with board flipping cards to really like get out from under pressure so that you can flip the board. And otherwise they really just stall. And the interesting thing about freeze, on top of everything already, like freeze is such a deep mechanic because it just interacts with something so fundamental on the board, right? Like your attack. Is you can also use it offensively. The Shaman card, hard to use offensively, but if you play an Ice Walker and you start hero powering their minions and preventing them from attacking you, then you're just getting free face damage, right?
Yeah.
If you Ghastly Conjure and then play your mirror image and then you keep going face, well, they still have to remove 2 O2s. It doesn't seem like, from the cards released so far, that that's really what KFT is setting up for, like the aggressive use of freeze, because like Ghastly Conjurer is a 2/6 body, right? Ice Walker is a 1/3 body. The Shaman thing has taunt. That's not really what they're setting up for. But in Arena, we're a little more flexible, right? Sometimes you do just want to go face, even if you're playing a generally more control-based deck.
Yeah, it definitely can happen. All right, so look, we're looking at a game that rewards you for being on the board and also mechanics that help you prolong the game, right? Mm-hmm. And especially for Mage and Shaman, which a lot of times you're just trying to set up for a spell, right? These certainly help. Freezes and just sort of very annoying things. Like I have gained so much respect for Mirror Image in terms of just its ability to soak up so much damage and set up for their Flame Strike or set up for Volcanic Potion.
Yep, exactly. And that's what's going to happen a lot more in KFT, which is good. Because it means it's going to force... And the last 2 expansions released so many flip the board cards that it was getting ridiculous. This is going to let you use your flip the board cards a little better, but they're not going to do it by themselves. So control decks are still getting something, but they're not getting the super OP, we're going to push aggro out of the meta kind of deal. But the most important thing, if you're like more of an aggro player than a control player, to know when dealing with this is, 1, they don't actually flip the board. You're actually kind of fine. They just stall. It's a lot better than what you used to be, or what Blizzard used to be printing. And 2, the more important thing for aggro, outside of preventing board clears, is actually always going to be curving out, right? Like, that's the backbone of aggro. And if you notice in the Frost Festival that's happening right now, aggro is pretty damn powerful. Like, Zoo's pretty good, Hunters are like flat out OP. It's just a very good way to play, partly because new players are bad at preventing aggro. Like we said, better players, better on the board, right? And 2, It's because once the Ungoro bonus got halved, a lot of like the old 2-drops started coming back into the meta, right? So they're not like the best 2-drops necessarily, but just seeing more like 2-mana cards, 3-mana cards allows you to fill your curve more, and you definitely curve out much better since June than you did before. So it's not as bad for aggro even in the recent future than it was if you're thinking like, oh, what happened when Ungoro released, or what happened in 7.1. So yeah, and we're not done with control yet. Other classes are getting great control cards. You want to talk about the Warlock card?
Oh my gosh, this okay. So the Warlock card, and who knows if Warlocks would get better cards, because they definitely need some good cards. But we're talking about the 2-mana rare spell that Warlock gets in KFT called Defile, which says deal 1 damage to all minions. If any die, cast this again.
Remember, it's a spell. It has a spell bonus, it has the set bonus for being in the new set, and it has a class bonus for being a class card.
Oh my gosh, this with spell damage? That's ridiculous. That is actually ridiculous. But Defile, man, this, once again, the design of this card is fantastic, right? It also forces your opponents to really think about how they want to sort of distribute damage. You have cards now that deal damage based on position, which ADWCTA, I know you hate, a Grievous Bite, for example, right? And now with Defile, you do not want to have like a 1 health minion, 2 health minion, 3 health minion, 4 health minion, and just like Defile for 2 mana.
The thing is, this deals damage to all minions. So even if you like quote unquote play around it, right, your opponent can just drop the proper minion and spend 2 cards to clear the board instead of 1.
Yep. No, they can definitely fill in, right?
Yeah, because it's Defile. It's just 2 mana. You're gonna be able to play another card to fill in your curve, right?
Right. You might as well play something like, if you can, it's like 1 health, 2 health, and then 6 health, 7 health. So they can't really do anything about that. But yeah, this is very sick. Oh my gosh. You know what? Now I'm looking at it's like you look at your board and you have like 4 health, 5 health, 6 health, and they play like Karakazam plus Defile.
I mean, that's Warlock though. Warlock blows up the board. Doom, Twisting Nether.
Yeah,
Shadow
exactly.
Flame also uses 2 cards, right? Like,
right.
It's just another addition to something the Warlock already does very well. And it's not on the aggro side. It's on the Warlock's control side with Abyssal. And then there's this interesting thing. It's not going to have any arena impact, but I just want to kind of like point out that Gnomish Vampire exists now. It is a 2-mana 2/3, which, great for Warlock. Warlock needs 2 drops, even though it's an epic. Like, you'll take it, right? It's still a class card. You'll still pick it when it comes because you need 2 drops. Like, great. And it has a battle cry that says, remove the top card from your opponent's deck.
Oh, man.
Like, keep in mind, there's no way in this game to, like, place a card on the top of your opponent's deck, or for your opponent to place a card on the top of their deck. You can't, like, mess around with your library order yet. Yet.
Right. So, as of right now, the battle cry is pretty useless.
It's mill 1 card.
Right, mill 1 card. And it really doesn't do anything. But this will definitely tilt some people. And who knows, this might be a preview to people being able to manipulate their decks in some way, right? As to the order of it, which Blizzard has traditionally not liked, right? And also they haven't liked they didn't want to make, I remember a long time ago, cards like Gnomish Vampire that messes with your opponent's deck or really messes with your opponent's hand, because
Priest used to have a mechanic that was like very priesty, and they had a lot of cards associated with it that was like basically the black discard of MTG, right? Like, just your opponent will discard cards like randomly.
Also, Mind Vision used to take a card.
Yeah, Mind Vision used to take a card. That was a whole priest thing. So they started copying now instead of taking, because people were getting so annoyed that they were getting all their combos ruined and whatnot.
Yeah. Except people now just get angry that they're copying cards anyways, or taking cards from, copying cards from their deck. So it's like, might as well just get rid of it. But yeah, this is interesting. Like whenever they make a card like this that sort of breaks a barrier, right? I'm always very intrigued, even though Gnomish Vampire by itself is pretty boring.
Yeah. But yeah, interesting in terms of the direction. And Druid is also getting a bunch of control cards. Druid is not really known for having control cards. Outside of like its classic cards, it doesn't usually get a lot of removals, period. Much less like board clears or anything like big and devastating. And here we're getting 2 very control cards, one of which is actually a board clear. I'm going to describe the card, and I mean, take it away after that. 5 mana, 5/3. Another 5/3 that we had like basically never seen before until this expansion. And it has a death rattle that says secretly, which means no one knows which one you pick. You get 2 choices. Deal 3 damage to all minions, or give them +2/+2. So this is like a ticking time bomb or a ticking time party feast buff, and you don't know which one it is, right? Like, so if you think your opponent is going to buff everything, well, then what you want to do is place a bunch of minions and then kill it. If you think your opponent is going to blow the whole board up, what you want to do is kill it and then play a bunch of minions. So, what do you think about this card?
I love the design. I think this design is fantastic. Look, no matter how good or how bad this card is, and I think this card is going to be like fine, right?
I think this card is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Like by fine, I mean it's like there's no way this card is like bad.
Zero,
right? Like,
0% chance it's bad.
Yeah, it's like a bad card. But I love the fact that they are using mechanics that we already have, but sort of stretching the limits and also kind of, because what this is basically it combines like a minion with a secret, right?
Yes.
It has that effect, and a lot of times, like, yeah, you can read into it, but once again, it's like risk analysis. Once again, it's like, first of all, you have to read your opponent. It's like, man, what do they want to play here, right? And sometimes it's super obvious because if they're super ahead on the board and they drop this, it's like, okay, probably not dealing 3 damage to all minions. But a lot of the times it's like, the board is in flux. Who knows, right? Or, they just drop it on an empty board and maybe their plan is to play lots of stuff the next turn. And maybe you can get rid of it and play.
It's mind games. It just goes the opposite.
It's so good.
The reason like people may be down on the card is that they think, oh, I'm gonna play mind games because I'm gonna lose sometimes, and if I lose, it's a horrible card. It's 5/3, right? Like it's awfully statted, and so it's not worth it. It's RNG basically, right? Secrets are a lot of RNG. This is Death Rattle too. You don't control it. Your opponent controls when this card dies, unless they give it back to you. It only has 3 health. But there's one instance in which case you will it's not even a secret, it is just an amazing card. And that is your opponent has a board and you don't. It's 5 mana, it's big enough. You are going to deal 3 damage to everything, which is like Hellfire, right? Which is like 4 mana usually anyway. And you don't damage yourself, which for a Warlock was one of the penalties of Hellfire. So this is like kind of a properly statted like full board clear here. And if your opponent has a board and you don't, and you play this card, your opponent needs to remove it or else they can't drop more minions. Because they know what it is, right? Like, they don't want to hit your face and then get even more of their stuff removed, especially when your thing has 5 attack. So they can't even drop big things to get out of it. So, in one scenario, that's not terribly uncommon, which is that your opponent has stuff on the board and you don't. This is just good. Just pure, like, A-bomb style good without the taunt.
Right.
And with 1 more additional damage, which is 50% more additional damage. So using that as a base, you can then, even in cases in which you're ahead on the board or any other situation, still play this card to good effect, which you cannot with A-Bomb, or especially not like a buffed up version of A-Bomb like dealing 3 damage. So this is ridiculous. Like, I think this is a ridiculous card because its use cases in which it fails is very, very little. Like, it seems like you may mess up or your opponent may guess correctly, but if you are like after you use this card a few times, I don't even think it takes a lot of skill to be able to know when to use this card so it doesn't hurt you that badly. So it has only upside in my book.
Yeah, no, I think it's really, really great. And by the way, guys, I think some people might have missed this because I see, but the Death Rattle gives all minions +2/+2, not just on the Fate Spinner side.
Oh,
and
yeah.
this is where the mind games come in, because I see some people, it's like, wait, there's no mind games here at all. What are you talking about? It's like, no. It's not just a pure positive for the person playing the Fate Spinner. If you choose the +2/+2, your opponent can capitalize on it if they decide they want to take the risk.
Like, imagine your opponent has a board of like one other minion besides Fate Spinner, which is going to happen a lot of times, right?
Right.
You can either, one, kill his minion, then kill the Fate Spinner, let the think that it's damage or that it's like +2/+2, but it doesn't matter. Just like go play it safe, right? Or what you can do is play a bunch of minions first before you kill those two. Like, if you think it's +2/+2, what you really want to do is to buff your minions, right? You don't want it to go to waste, but if it's the other one, you get totally screwed. And it gets even more interesting if in the even more normal case, you only have one removal. So if you remove his other minion, then you have to put out a board, and the Fate Spinner is now on the board, right? And could potentially kill everything. Or if you kill the Fate Spinner, it'll then buff his side of the board and his minion and will get the benefit. So in that case, what would you do? Well, you would put a lot of stuff on your board because you want the buff and you're afraid of the buff. But again, it still may not be the buff, in which case you would lose all of your minions, right? That's where the mind game comes out. If you want to really screw with your opponent's mind, you don't play this on an empty board. You play it when you have one minion and your opponent can only remove one thing on your board. That's like the optimal scenario for most mind games.
But seeing sort of the themes we've gone through in KFT, boards won't be that simple, right? Like, boards will not be very simple. And when you play
a connection with Ungoro. Ungoro had difficult boards. Ungoro had a lot of stalled out boards with the Tar Creepers and stuff.
Yeah. Ungoro started the trend of stalling, but now there's a lot of fanciness and weird tech going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really cool. This is definitely the one of the cards that I saw they're coming out with. I'm just like, amazing design.
That's not what you were like. You were like, ooh, amazing design.
Yes.
Okay, so that's Fate Spinner. And then if you think this is not control enough for the Druid, because if you guys know us and watch us, you know we play Druid quite a good amount, and we play them aggressively because that's where Druid's been going. They haven't been printing big cards for the Druid. Druid aggression works pretty well. Mark of the Lotus is like basically screaming at you to go aggressive. And going aggro works with Druid because even the hero power can help you finish off an opponent, right? Like, it just all kind of works together. They have some reach in their kit. It's fine. But now it seems like Druid is going to get more love for its control side. Spreading Plague is another card that is in KFT. It's 5 mana. Summon a 1/5 Scarab with Taunt. If your opponent has more minions, cast this again. It's basically unleash the 1/5 taunts. But like you don't get as many taunts if you have stuff on your board.
Right.
For 5 mana, I think it would be fair if you got 3 1/5 taunts. Like, I think that's kind of a fair like assessment. It's hard to assess how much 1/5 taunts are worth and how much multiple 1/5 taunts are worth. But I think probably 3 is where they drew the line. So if your opponent has a bunch of stuff, this is really, really good. But in a normal situation, this is not a good card. Like, you're not going to get your opponents to commit more than 3 minions anyway. 3 minions barely gets value on this. And again, what does it do? It stalls. That's all this card does. That 1 damage is not going to do all that much to your opponents.
No, this is such a good stall and anti-aggro card, right? Because 1/5 taunts they will stop stuff in their tracks. So if you're facing down like 2 1s and 2 3s and everything, like 1 3s, this will be a huge problem for them.
Yep. I mean, it punishes people who really spread out on the board. But in a typical situation where your opponent's still afraid of MCT and things like that, like, they're going to try to keep it to 3. And then you're going to like get value out of this, but most of its value is stalling. So you do get the value, but then like You have to do something about it. And you're a druid. So what are you doing about it if you're falling even behind in tempo? Even farther behind in tempo.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think the stats on it are bad necessarily, but its use cases for the druid, at least from the druid that we normally play, is not terribly exciting.
Right.
Okay, so we have all this stall, we have all this freeze, we have all this stuff. You may be thinking, well, there's one class that's been kind of crappy lately, and it's just gonna get screwed so hard by KFT. Why? Because it's the warrior. And what does the warrior hate? Being frozen. Why? Because you can't use weapons when you're frozen, and the warrior can't do anything without weapons. Or two, taunts generally just screw the warrior, right? One of the warrior's most important things with weapons is that you get to go face or remove a minion, so you get to always put the pressure on with some of the best reach in the entire game in all of your common removals. Fireball deals 6, Arcanine Reaper deals 10. That's the difference between Mage Reach and Warrior Reach. And the downside to it is Warrior Reach gets blocked really, really, really easily with taunts. Super easily. So freezes, taunts, all sorts of stall is incredibly bad for the warrior. And so warriors are about to enter a highly disfavorable meta for the warrior, in my opinion. And that's potentially very bad. We'll see how well the micro adjusts do. But one thing Blizzard has done in this in KFT's reveal so far is reveal a whole crap ton of warrior cards, right? We have 2 commons, 2 rares, 2 epics. We don't have that many cards for anyone else. There's more warrior cards revealed than any other class. And so far, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're not ridiculously amazing the way some of the old school warrior cards were in the wake of the Arena Warriors Matter, movement was. And you're not getting a Fool's Bane here, but it's very consistently good. I hear a lot of talk in the forums and whatever that, Warrior's going to get so screwed. I mean, they kind of are, but they have the cards that's going to make it okay, I think. Will they be the worst class? Maybe.
So far, it's... Okay, look, we haven't seen a lot of cards, so this is not the end-all, right?
Right, but we've seen a lot of warrior cards. In fact, there's only going to be 1 more common and 1 more rare to be released. We know all the other warrior cards. So... and we know a whole bunch of cards from other classes. We're not reviewing every card right now, and we're not even giving value propositions on most of them exactly. We just kind of want to tell you where this expansion is going, and to kind of get you hyped a little. We'll give real scores and real values starting next week, and we'll have a whole what you're expecting, the 4, 5, 6 hour full review evaluation stream. We're shooting for Tuesday. Not this Tuesday, but the next Tuesday. Hopefully there'll be a card dump by then, and we'll be ready with all the specific numbers and the next iteration of the Lightforge tier list for KFT. But for now, we haven't talked about a lot of the cards because they're frankly not good. They're frankly not very good cards, and you won't see them a lot in the arena. And Warrior doesn't have a lot of those. You want to talk about your favorite Warrior card?
What's my favorite warrior card?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh, okay. Well, look, because I thought you were pointing towards something specific. I was like,
nope, not a trap question.
Yeah, I thought it was a trap question. That's what I expect from you. But my favorite warrior card is the weapon, right? Whenever a weapon comes out, I'm always interested in seeing what it is, sort of how it fits into the warrior playstyle. And here we have Blood Razor. It's a common, right? Common weapon. You're going to see this a lot with the offering rate. 4 mana weapon, 2 attack, 2 durability, battle cry, and death rattle. Deal 1 damage to all minions. Very interesting card. So what they have done recently with weapons, right, for the warrior, they've realized this with Hunter quite a while ago, but they've realized it with warrior now. They're just like, we don't want to give you weapons that you can go face with, right, or that you should be going face with.
Right.
That's why they're making stuff like Fool's Bane, right? It's the ultimate sort of board control weapon, and this is very board oriented.
They made that claw thing that's also 4 mana 2 damage for MSG.
Brass Knuckles.
Brass Knuckles, yeah.
Claws, jeez. But yeah, Brass Knuckles, which very little damage, and it buffs your minions, right? It wants you to play on the board, and it wants you to do all this stuff. So this is just going with the theme of we don't want you going face with the weapons anymore. We're not going to print any more Fiery War Axes or Arcanite Reapers. I know. Or even like King's Defender.
Right? Where are you? I used to hate that card. I want it back.
I know. But I think this card is really interesting in which it also rewards you for setting up the board, right? Mm-hmm. And it gives a small AoEs for a class in which you have Whirlwind, but you don't really draft it. Ravaging Ghoul is still here, but it's hard to get. So this card will help out a lot.
Yeah, I mean this fills the hole that God, why am I'm so tired today. What did I just say? The 4-mana weapon.
Death's Bite.
It's just blanking out on names. Death's Bite. This fills the hole that Death's Bite left when it was taken out of the rotation. Right? It deals 1 damage to everything.
Right. It's not as good as Death's Bite.
No. Not nearly as good as Death's Bite. And I'll get into that. Yeah. But it fills the same type of role in which it's dealing 1 damage to a lot of stuff. It even has the same Death Rattle, but it also has a Battle Cry that does the same. And so it triggers all these synergies. And warriors are definitely going to become more of that, we can injure our own minions, and we can trigger our enrages, and we can get value out of Acolyte of Pains, even in the arena kind of class. But the important thing, and I think Merp said it, is that it is not a very good weapon. In fact, it's one of the worst weapons ever released. Yep. But it's still a weapon. So it's still going to be really good. You're still going to draft it. You're going to take this over a Yeti any day. But it's not an overpowering weapon. And that's a good direction to go for the warrior, because you want to be able to make some more interesting weapons so that warriors are not just how many weapons did I get? Oh, well, that's going to be my win rate for this run. You don't want that to be the warrior class. And this does a good job with it. It's a little combo-y, a little interesting. And yeah, I mean, possibly this is a 2-turn, 2 damage to everything board clear even, right? It has that possibility to be a mini consecration, Primordial Drakish kind of thing, for the warrior, and the warrior doesn't really have that. So definitely interesting. And Fiery Warrior is another card that's it sucks. But just to give you an idea of what Blizzard's trying to do, it's a 1-mana 1/3, and its text says whenever you play a minion, deal 1 damage to it. So it'll trigger all your enrages and your Acolyte of Pains, but it's a 1-mana 1/3, and if your opponent doesn't remove it, you need to kill it immediately, or else it's going to just start hurting your board. So yeah, that's definitely not a good card, but more synergy stuff. You get where they're going with it, right? You're never going to take a fiery warrior.
Right.
The card I like the most in Warrior is Mountain Fire Armor.
I knew you were going to say that.
I love this card.
Once again, great design.
Oh, I love this card.
Props to the design team for a lot of these designs. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no new actual mechanic in KFT, but every card revealed so far, at least, has been really interesting. And so, and really very much more skill based than what we're used to seeing from Hearthstone. So I think this is Hearthstone maturing. This is Hearthstone becoming a more complicated game, saying look, we spent all that time, we had brawls, we had whatevers, we got all the casual people in. Now the people that are left and really playing this game is much more of a hardcore audience than it used to be. And so we'll cater our cards much more to that. This is no longer GVG, right? This is no longer that's not what we're doing with this game anymore, because that's not the stage that Hearthstone is in. And Mountain Fire Armor really reflects that, because Blizzard keeps trying to print armor for Warrior, and they have to find a way to make it not overpowered, because it typically is, because of all the great synergies that go with it and constructed for Control Warrior. So Mountain Fire Armor is a 3-mana 4/3 Death Rattle. If it's your opponent's turn, gain 6 armor. So if you use it to kill something, as you typically want to with a 4/3, right? If you use it to kill something, it's probably something that's using the 4 damage, you're fine. If your opponent kills you, which was what you're really afraid of with a 4/3, your opponent has that 3/2, or even a 3/3, and then kills your 4/3, well, then you at least get 6 armor. So if your opponent has a 3/3 on the board, facing your 4/3 Mountain Fire Armor, it used to be he had a choice to take the good trade or to deal 3 damage to your face and then still stay on the board and force you to maybe do a bad trade to remove him, depending on who cares about their health more. Now, his choice is, I can remove you and not only miss 3 damage, but give you 6 more, so cause a 9 health swing, which is ridiculous. Or I can hit you to the face, but then you get to use your 4/3 however you want.
Right. The punish is there.
Yeah.
Right. And once again, risk analysis.
And once again, in KFT, what do we want? Stuff on the board, right? Just one thing on the board makes a huge difference because of all what we set up in the very beginning of the Lightforge, of the whole on the board thing with the neutral cards.
Right. It's like you are trying to sort of get, like, you're the aggressor and the warrior drops this thing, and you're just like, man, I don't want a 9 health swing, but at the same time, I also don't want them to bone mare this, right?
Yeah.
If they bone mare this thing, it's over. So it's really tough spot.
Okay, and one last warrior card, and again, these are like very interesting and like pretty good warrior cards, right? Like 3 mana 4/3 is
definitely
good with a conditional death rattle. Hey, free armor, right? Like sometimes. This one's really interesting. It's a Valkyr Soul Claimer. It says whenever this minion survives damage, summon a 2/2 ghoul, and it's a 1/4. So for 3 mana, you kind of need it to summon a 2/2 ghoul for it to be good.
And it should. It should. Like, if it comes out in turn 3, like there are 4/3s in the meta, right? But a lot of times, we see a lot of 3/3s now, or we see a lot of like, not Fen Creeper, Tar Creepers as well. So we see a lot of like these stall cards, and if you see a lot of stall cards or small stuff, this can potentially get a lot of value.
Yeah, this can deal 4 damage probably. Like, it's a curve card. It doesn't look like a curve card. It can get punished, but it is a curve card, and it takes the synergy later on in the game from your Blood Razors, your Ravaging Ghouls, and whatnot. Your like Cruel Taskmasters that still exists. So this is like a very interesting card, and I think it's better than people normally give it credit for. Not to say it's an amazing card, but
no, definitely not. It's like I see someone in the chat saying this is just a crappy version of Imp Gang Boss. It's like, yes, it is. And Imp Gang Boss is OP.
Yes, I will take crappy versions of Imp Gang Boss all day.
Right. It's right, exactly. It's like, oh man, I don't want to take this. It's just a crappier version of Vine Cleaver. It's like, oh, this is just a worse version of Fireline's Portal. It's like, okay,
yeah,
please give me that card.
Okay, so that's Warrior. Like, I just want to say, Warrior looks like it's going to be vaguely okay. I'm not going to say it's not going to be the worst class in the game again, but they have micro adjusts happening. People really suck with Warrior for some reason, so the micro adjusts are going to be very favorable to Warrior. And these are not bad cards. Like, other classes get worse. A lot of other classes get worse. Like, for example, we told you about like the Shaman weapon that does nothing. Right? Like, all the Paladin cards are bad. We're not even going to talk about any of them. There's 2 that's revealed so far. They're both like horrible, and you'll never draft them.
Yeah.
Mages are like interesting, but they don't have like great cards released yet. Hunter has a really interesting card. Hunter has some good cards that are being released, actually. Like, just like solidly good cards. You want to do a rundown on Hunter?
Sure, we could do that quickly. And by quickly, I mean at our speed, which is not quick.
So you mean like, yeah, just not quick at all?
Not quick at all. All right, I will start off with a card that just might be my favorite card. It just kind of
really
because of the theme of it. I know. The Hunters have a new minion. It is a beast, obviously. It is a common 3 mana 4/3 beast, Bear Shark. All right. It has the body of a bear and the head of a shark, and it cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers. It's basically just a bigger fairy dragon, right?
Yep, it's a bigger fairy dragon. It's a beast. It's not a dragon. You can Houndmaster it on curve,
which is good.
Yeah, which is really good. Your opponent can't remove it. Like, it has its purposes. It's not the most exciting card.
It's not the most exciting card. It's a bear shark.
It's a bear shark. It's a shark bear, depending on who you talk to, actually. There's some controversy in the community about what this card should be. I am much more interested in the other card that they revealed. It's actually a spell and a secret, and so it's going to be offered twice as much in the arena. So it is Venom Strike Trap. Secret. When one of your minions is attacked, aka Snake Trap. Apparently snakes just require you to be attacked. I don't know why. Summon a 2/3 poisonous cobra.
Yep.
So, what are you gonna do when your opponent plays a secret? Not attack your hunter's minions? Like, that's kind of a risky strategy. But if you attack the hunter's minion, you better have something left over to deal with the Emperor Cobra, or you can't place your next curve drop because the Emperor Cobra will eat it.
Exactly. So once again, risk analysis and assessment, right? Because this isn't something like a cat trick in which you will only get out a jungle panther and then you're like, okay, well, I do my thing, I trigger the trap, and the jungle panther only has 4 attack, right? Emperor Cobra has limitless attack as long as you attack something on the board.
Like, there's a difference between them both being 3 mana, right? Like, the point of the panther is that they can't hit it anyway. That's why it's stealth. That's why it's using up all 3 mana. The point of the poisonous cobra is that it's understated, so you can use your attack on the board to get rid of it. Except, the only way to trigger it is to have already used your attack on the board to trigger it. And then you're screwed. And if you're thinking, oh no, but I'll only do it when I play small things. Well, what if it's a snake trap? Snake trap will eat up your small things. Like, there's a no-win situation now with the Hunter Secrets. This is a very game-changing card that they have added into the meta. And this is what we mean by Snipe, right? Like, we need Snipe back into the meta. Naka Snipe is a good card. But just because it totally changes the way that you interpret, like, Hunter Secrets. And this is what this card does. And it's a very good card. Like, Snake Trap is very good. This card is very good. This card's even better than Snake Trap.
No, it's quite good. And although, is this the last time that they can print a secret like this? Because we've seen Bear Trap, right, which is Ironfur Grizzly for 2 mana. We've seen Cat Trick, which is Jungle Panther for 2 mana, and now Emperor Cobra for
there's more beasts.
2 mana.
There's more beasts. There's like boars and
no, 3. It has to be a 3.
Oh, it has to be a 3 mana beast.
Yeah.
Huh. Let me look at our tier list. See what 3 mana beasts there are. There's a wasp. Hello.
Oh no.
That's a beast.
Oh no, wait. No, they can't do that.
There's an even better beast.
The power creep will
There's
be
an even better beast than wasp to summon.
Oh my god. Well, okay. Right, if they so next time, no, you won't know. It'll either be wasp or flappy.
It will be a Flappy Bird every time. You will die every time you hit one of the hunter minions.
No, like the secret itself.
Like, I'm just going down my tier list, and like the top 2 like 3 drops are both beasts that haven't been seen yet.
Oh gosh. All right. Hopefully we didn't give Blizzard any ideas.
I like Hunter. Okay, but I just wanted to give a thing about Venom Strike Trap. So there's also like other good things going on with Hunter. Abomination Archer, 7 mana, 6/7, Death Rattle, summon a random friendly beast that died this game. And there's this new Hunter card that actually just came out like just now.
Right.
Do you have
Yeah, I can definitely talk about it.
Yeah.
So it is Stitched Tracker, right? It's a 3 mana minion common, a 3 mana 2/2 that says Battle Cry. Discover a copy of a minion in your deck. So first of all, this is just like we've seen something similar to this in Cabal Courier, right? Except you're not discovering from other classes; you're discovering from your own deck. So you know what is in your deck, you know what you can potentially pull, and you're not pulling it from your deck. You're just discovering a copy, so that minion is still in there. So if you want the Savannah Highmane, you can grab it. A Savannah Highmane is still in your deck. And they really want to make Control Hunter work out, right? They really want to make mid-range Control Hunter work. And I have to say, in Arena,
Oh, it's a great card. It's a great card in the Arena. You can't even, like, because in Arena you're drafting like mid-range hunters anyway.
I'm not.
Okay, fine.
I
I'm drafting control hunters actually.
know you
My
do.
11-win hunter has so many control cards, and I would love to like be able to discover a minion out of my deck, to pick the right one for the situation. It's
Oh,
gonna
well,
be a good card.
if you're doing Control Hunter, you are going to pick that legendary every single time. Then,
What legendary? I haven't looked at the legendaries yet, actually.
are you kidding me? You haven't looked at the Hunter legendary. That
Professor
screen.
Putricide?
No. Deathstalker Rexar.
Oh, the Rexar guy. Yeah. Deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, gain 5 armor, create a zombies.
Yeah,
Becomes your hero power. Yeah, definitely. But we're not talking about legendaries, all right? Legendaries are game changing. Control Hunter is definitely going to be a real thing in the next meta, but only if you get this card. And to be totally honest, if you get this card, you should not be playing Control Hunter. You should be drafting an Aggro Hunter because you will have a hero power ability that makes you the Control Hunter, right? So it doesn't actually change your draft. But speaking of that kind of like discovering out of your own deck kind of thing, Priest has a similar kind of thing going for it, which is interesting. And I'm wondering how good it's actually going to be. Eternal Servitude, 4 mana. Discover a friendly minion that died this game. Summon it.
I love this card. I think. Oh man, this is just like. I think this has the potential to be really freaking good.
Really?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking it's gonna do?
First of all, you like stuff dies, and this doesn't. It's not like Resurrect in which it's random, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just get to pick. You get to pick whatever, whatever to summon back. Now, it is a late game card, right? And it is one of those things in which you could definitely whiff, but I think this is okay. Something is going on outside my window that is extremely loud.
Yep, we hear it.
Yes. Anyways, I think this card, because priests play very slow anyways, right? And this can get them that sort of late game advantage, or even late game, mid game, like tempo.
Mid game tempo advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, so my problem with this is that your small minions are going to die quicker. Anytime you have something that generates tokens, they're all going to die. Like, yes, you will be able to select the biggest one that you get, but assuming something dies on 2, something dies on 3, something else dies on 4, because you're definitely not playing this on 4, something dies on 5, and you're trying to play this on 6, maybe, like, you know, it's kind of a risk, but maybe if you've been playing on curve. And then if you're only playing big cards by 7 or 8, you could definitely play it for a little bit of a tempo swing. But it's kind of like it feels to me like a RNG, but more stable version of something like Molten Reflection.
Right. Something similar to that. I think this card will be average to good, right? I'm not saying this is going to be a premium card by any means.
Yeah. I think it'll be above average, definitely, just because of the sheer power that it could have, right? Like 4 mana, get a 6-drop, like half the time. But it's not game changing, is kind of my point, right? It's still just 4 mana, summon a minion. It'll be a little bigger than 4 mana, but you're not allowed to play this card on curve.
Yep.
And we've seen those cards before, and they're okay kind of at best, right? Like, and this is like the more powerful version of them, but I don't think it quite gets up to like a premium card or you know, even like a very good card. It's just kind of like good above average kind of deal. That's my prediction anyway. All right, and we're gonna wrap up the card review with with Rogue, which is kind of like a Hunter, but not.
Maybe.
You want to talk about your favorite Rogue card? I don't even know which one it is. Again, not a trap question. I really want to know what your favorite Rogue card is.
Oh, really? Okay. So let me
So the card that we're not going to talk about is Leeching Poison. It's 2 mana and it gives your weapon lifesteal. That is a really weird way to give Rogue healing, like a really weird way. But you know, I guess it works.
Look, the card that I think everyone that drew the loudest reaction is Plague Scientist, right? which is a common minion. 3 mana, 2/3 combo. Give a friendly minion poisonous. Once again, this is
Hard
just like
removal.
Yeah, hard removal, and I don't think this card is like the. I don't know. Some people think it's like a world beater. I don't think it's like that good.
You can't compare this with Valspine.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's not that that good, but what it does do is it changes the way you play against Rogue, right? Because but previously it's like, what were Rogue's strengths and weaknesses before? They don't have much AoE, right? Thank God Dark Iron Skulker is gone. They don't have AoE. They have great single target removal. And how do you beat Rogues? You just go face, right? Like you hit them to the face. And when they had small stuff out there, they don't punish you by keeping small stuff on the board. They don't buff. They don't they do anything like that. Now it changes. Now, you see the little if they have 2 fireflies on the board and you have like 2 big things, you're just kind of like, oh man, maybe I should get rid of these fireflies. When right now I'm like, I do not care about those fireflies at all. I just go face, right? I really do not care. Those fireflies will do nothing. They can cold blood, but maybe that's not even enough to get rid of your minion.
Right.
And now you have to really consider that, which I think is very impactful, right? Whenever something goes from like 0 to something, which is what this does, it impacts the matchup greatly. So Plague Scientist, I think it really just changes the way you play against Rogue, which I don't know. We'll see how powerful Rogue is, but this will be have a big meta impact because Rogue will be picked a lot. Rogue has always been good, and it changes the way you play against them. So
yeah, you're thinking that this is a really good card. It's not a really good card. It's not even a premium card for Rogue. Why? Because you need a minion on the board. 1, which is not that easy. 2, your minion's gonna die. This kills the minion too. Like any minion with poison is gonna hit something and die unless it has the Divine Shield.
I mean, it could be like a 4/6 up against a 4/6, right, or something.
Sure, but then you're just playing a really understated version of like Dark Iron Dwarf, right? With it like keeping the poisonous, which is the more scary part. But then like it already had 4 attack anyway. It's not terribly powerful, but it's definitely good.
Oh yeah, this is a very good card. Yeah,
the downside of it is that the 2/3 in the late game is really very useless compared to a 3/4. Yes. And you do need something on the board. And remember what the standard is right now, right? Like for people who are judging this to be an insane card, you're living in the whatever this new card like Bone Mare card is. Like you're living in the pre-Bone Mare meta. We're now in the Bone Mare meta. If you're leaving a medium-sized or small thing on the board for your opponent, just expect it to get big. Just expect it to destroy you. Because you should. Like, if you played around Bone Mare, then you've also played around a Plague Scientist. Like, this is not really terribly changing the way you play in the new meta, I think. I think it is definitely different to how you would play in the old meta. And I think this gives Rogue a lot more consistency in that threat. That it's like a really big threat now if you're facing Rogue.
Right.
But it was always going to be a threat. In fact, it's going to be a threat like no matter what class you are just because of Bone Mare. So the Plague Scientist is, in the arena at least, it's less going to be like, is it like a world beater? And it's more going to be, I have additional consistency on a card that is like not as good as a Bone Mare, but like has a similar effect on the board immediately. It's not a 5/5 body. It's not a big enough card, basically. But it will have the tempo effect.
Yeah.
So that's my analysis of Plague Scientist. And then they have Shadowblade, 3 mana, 3/2. Battlecry, your hero's immune this turn. Decent weapon. We'll see if rogues can actually get a decent weapon that's not Perdition's Blade. And that's all the cards we're reviewing today. We're looking forward to more card spoilers for next week. And hopefully we'll actually get a whole card dump, and then we can really talk about the meta on next week's Lightforge. Before we wrap it up, I want to talk about a question from the Goat. Do you have the question from the Goat from our subreddit this time? It is it's just the subreddit is just Grinning Goat, and yeah.
This question was submitted by Doom Mesto Desu. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Doom Mesto Desu.
Yeah. And they ask, I want to ask if Blizzard had not gone the direction they did with power creeps, adding more spells, initiative, changing offering bonuses that all equate to less relative skill required, what do you think they should have done to keep the fans happy? I'm just curious to see what direction you guys would have taken the game if we were back in the early days of only 1 or 2 expansions released and no changes to Arena yet. So,
okay. So I wrote a response to this in the subreddit. If you want, you can go check it out and look at it like more in detail. But this is like, it's basically like what would you do to the arena, right? Like very specifically, what would you do to the arena? Because we've been criticizing Blizzard and the direction Blizzard's kind of taken the arena. And here's exactly what I would do. I laid it out in 5 steps. Step 1, standard cards plus Hall of Fame cards. Hall of Fame cards are gotten rid of for constructive reasons. Has nothing to do with the arena. No reason to have them gone. And all the standard cards, right? Bring back Snipe, bring back any cards you remove, Faceless Summoner, bring it all back. Just give us a normal standard card pool before the constructed influence. 2, different offering rates based on expansion. I would suggest that Classic gets 0.75, which is less harsh, much less harsh than the 0.5 modifier that it gets. And the current expansion does what they've been doing for Ungoro, which I thought was pretty effective, which is double to start and then go down to 1.5 after a couple months. And the next thing I would do is the biggest... So far it's kind of the same, right? I'm like smoothing out the edges a little, but it's kind of the same. And the big one is flat card bonus, right? We've talked about this a couple times, but there's no reason spells are special, that weapons are special. Minions kind of do the same thing. Some spells just summon a minion. What you really care about for class identity is the actual class card. So I would suggest a 3x offering bonus for class cards all across the board, rather than this weird system of minions versus spells that we have going on here. And then, on top of that, I would get rid of all the rarity considerations and just recreate a chart based on how normal these cards are and how good these cards are. Like, I don't care how you judge them. Blizzard has win rates. They will eventually piece together something that is recognizable, and they can then move things wherever they want to like, say, make Hunter more control, or allow Hunter to be more aggro, or balance Mage to be aggro and control, and it'll be completely divorced from what cards they're releasing for constructed, right? And it's going to be completely divorced from, like, oh, epic cards have to be more complicated, or like, we want people to have enough access to like all the elementals because it's our thing, so all the elementals are going to be like commons and rares. You can get rid of all those considerations and just create a couple buckets. I suggested a base bucket at a ratio of 1, and then the next bucket being rare is at half the offering rate, and then it's at 1/6 the offering rate of base, and then at 3.333% of the offering rate of base for like cards you don't really want to see in the arena, but you want to acknowledge exist, right? Like, these are cards like MCT I would freaking put there. Like, Deathwing definitely goes there. Magma Rager would go there, right? Like, it's a wild card. It doesn't have to be good. It's just stuff we want to dump somewhere.
Yep.
Primordial Drake, I would definitely put as a wild card. Hate that card. You could put Vicious Fledgling there, right? Like, you could put places, you could put cards in these buckets, and so it will involve like a curator that's a human being, but they can look at like data and have a computer make these suggestions. The same way they do micro adjusts. It just wouldn't be like exactly automatic. And every 2 weeks you move things around, right? Like, every 2 weeks you get enough of a sense of a meta, and you're like, this class may be okay the way it is. In this class, let's like shift this card to be more, this card to be less, or whatever. And you announce it a week before you make the change, or like a couple days before you make the change, whatever, so that, you know, everybody's ready and reviewed it and whatever. And you keep the meta fresh because these offering rates are always changing a little slightly, but you keep the base consistent so most players can just step in and see a very similar meta on a day-to-day basis. All the classes are automatically, or not automatically, but they will be balanced because you can just move good cards down for the good classes and more maybe thematic cards up, but that are less good, right? So that you're like, oh, I guess it's okay if I am the shaman and I get all these earth shocks. Like, that's a pretty shaman-y kind of card, even though it's not the best card, right? And I don't get all these volcanoes, because volcanoes are really good. So that's my proposal. And I would also reorganize only the class cards, because it's about class balance. For the neutral cards, maybe reorganize it like once or twice per expansion, just to like create the expansion like consistency.
Yep. All right. Sounds pretty good. I mean, I agree with all of this stuff. The important consideration for me when you're talking about balancing or changing the arena is just simplicity and elegance, right? That's something that we preach all the time. And with these things, I think it's very easy to explain. It's easy to explain, and it's easy to
you know how long we take to talk about everything. We spent an hour and a half talking about like 20 cards. I just explained that in like 3 minutes less.
Yeah. And what you explained can also be put in like a nice, neat little like infograph, right?
Yeah.
As well. It's like, oh, here are the 4 buckets, right? Like your 4 custom rarities. Here's what belongs there. And also, by the way, here are the rates to class cards and whatever. Easy to explain. Might take a little bit of time for someone to remember, but they should be able to pick it up.
Yeah,
so.
And they would be able to remember, like, they wouldn't be able to, like, new players wouldn't be able to remember anyway. They don't know what a rare card is. They don't know what a common card is, right? So the only people that would be a little confused are people who are going from constructed to arena. But they have never seen half these cards anyway, because they're constructed players. They don't use, 80% of the cards Blizzard makes. So why should they be the people that are holding arena hostage, right? Like, we actually use all the cards. So let's make all the cards work for us. And if the constructed players coming in get like a little confused by the rarities not being exactly the same as constructed, and they could even be mostly the same, right? It's not like you have to totally abandon the system. You just don't have to be a slave to it. I think that's a very small cost, and that still makes the entire system much more easy to explain than Blizzard's current system, which is 1 to 5%, and then it turns out to not really be even 5%, but more than that. On all cards, including neutrals, differently for different classes. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
That's a question from the GOAT, coming from our patrons, patreon.com/Grinning Goat. Thank you guys so much. Please contribute if you would like, and we will be bringing a quite significant Lightforge tier list update in right before this expansion comes out, and we are moving on to Warrior next.
We're playing Warrior.
We're playing Warrior next. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Warrior and where it is right now in the meta?
Man, I really don't know, because I've played so much Hearthstone, but I haven't played a single Warrior run during this time. Because
have you faced Warriors?
Oh yeah, and they kill me. But
that's really new. That doesn't usually happen.
Because what ends up happening now in sort of the Frost Festival meta, right? Because this is different from when you are at low. Because before Frost Festival, when did you see Warriors? You saw them in the low winds, right? Mm-hmm. Now, because you have a lot of people just coming in, using their ticket or just playing whatever, they will not pick Warrior, right? They will pick the Mage. They will pick the Paladin. So right now, like before Frost Festival, you were more likely to see a Warrior at low winds. Now, if you do see a Warrior, which is not common, but if you do see a Warrior, I see them more at high winds.
Yep.
And the high wind Warriors are really, really scary. So
they have Gore Howls.
They have Gore Howls. I faced, unfortunately, in my current run, I did face a Warrior at 1-0, so that would be 0-0. We had an epic battle, but at the end, he had 3 fiery war axes, and he had the execute combos with the slams and everything, and then just destroyed me. But Warrior, I find it's still not in a great place, because here, like, what are Warriors good at, right? They are good at getting value. Right. So they can be aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is the way to play. Because
Yeah.
if you drafting like a really good controller, that's very hard, right? It's really, really hard. So if you're aggressive, one of the problems is you're not going to be as good as a class like Hunter, in which they have more and better curve cards than you,
Yes.
right?
Much better and much more.
And also their hero power does something.
Yeah.
Which is a huge deal. And with Hunter, when they're going for lethal, their hero power probably does like 8 damage by the time you get lethal. So you're just missing that 8 damage there. So what do? Do you play more control-ish? Like
you play mid-range.
You can play mid-range, but you basically also lose to every single paladin that's out there.
Yes, that's the problem.
That
That's
really
the
is the problem.
biggest problem with Warrior. I think otherwise Warrior's in a pretty good spot right now. Your 2-drops are back with the reduction of the Ungoro bonus. Your weapons are up. You get way more weapons than you need now. Well, not way more, a tiny bit more. You get enough weapons that you need usually in a Warrior draft. And when you do that and you play the Warrior effectively, it works. It ends up working. You make the pressure, you push the face. Opponents right now are pretty weak. They don't really know what to do against Warrior. They don't know what to do when they're pressured. They lose. If they don't have a Primordial Drake, they're pretty much gone. That's how games go with the Warrior, which is why they're a pretty decent class. We have them like mid-tier. Right now, well, pre-Frost Festival, just in the, since all the changes have gone in. And we do know that the micro adjusts are in. So Warriors get a lot better cards. Just like if you think about a Primordial Drake, Warriors are going to get more of it. If you look at all the good Warrior cards, Warriors are going to get more of those. Like, there's some handicapping going on in the Warriors' favor behind the scenes for Blizzard, and so it makes your draft a lot more consistent. It makes your decks run a lot more smoothly, and you feel it if you play enough Warrior runs. So I think it's in a good place right now. The problem is, of course, Paladin, as Merp said. You don't win against Paladins when it gets to the late game. If they spike Steed, you don't win. So that's like one more super powerful card that just absolutely wrecks you. If they Vine Cleaver, you most likely don't win because you have to just go face because you're about to lose from that point on. And you definitely can't outvalue a Paladin. So you have to go face, but with Paladin, if you go face and they have a buff, you lose. So the real issue with Warrior is not like a consistently high win rate. The real issue is getting 12 wins. Yep. Because Warrior is pretty good up until 9 wins. Like, there are not that many classes better than Warrior to get to 9 wins. But after 9 wins, that's when the Paladin concentration really kicks in. And that's when you start to really feel like this is a class that is still quite underpowered. But the average is fine. And in the Frost Festival, like, you get capped, like 12 wins are actually 11 wins. So you get capped like basically 1 win earlier. So I feel like the Warriors in a pretty good spot here, actually.
Yep.
And so we're actually we have gotten what is this now? 7 out of the last 10 of our streamed runs have gone 12 wins. And we are about to embark on our 8th 12 win, hopefully, all in the Frost Festival, and we'll hope to see you there. If you're watching us, if you're watching this on YouTube, this will be on the Arena Coop. You can click the link and it'll take you right there. And if you're listening on the podcast, check out our YouTube. It has all of our past 12 win runs, including all 7 of the ones that I just mentioned. They're not all up yet, but they're like being released. I think we have like 4 of them up, and there's 3 still like in queue. We've been knocking them out at a rate that our video editors can't quite keep up with. And of course, the Arena Coop after the Lightforge every week is also up there for the not just the good runs version of our program. Okay, see you guys next week. Next week is the big one. Next week is when we actually know all the cards, hopefully. And knowing 20 cards, we've still taken an hour and 40 minutes here, so it's going to be a long one next week. Until then, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps.
All right.
That was appropriate.